Welcome back. It's almost 6:40 and it's 76 degrees outside here in downtown Amarillo. And Taylor and Brian, as they always do on Tuesday mornings, joining me here from the Geek Squad out at Best Buy at near Westgate Mall. Let's talk about cameras. You talk about a dramatic, radical change in technology.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there used to be only one kind of camera, as a film camera. You could get whatever, and now film is gone pretty much.
Yep. It's dead.
And now we're talking megapixels and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
everything's digital now.
Everything is digital. So let's talk about the change. And for someone who's really not that up on their camera knowledge, hopefully they will be by the end of this segment. So let's talk about megapixels first.
Well, megapixels directly refers to the number of pixels in the image that you shoot with your camera.
Okay.
The prefix mega means million. So whenever you see 10 megapixels, it's 10 million dots of color on the image. So the more pixels you have, the sharper it appears, and the less jagged edges and visible squares of color you can see.
Now, you also need to keep in mind, too, the higher the megapixel, the more storage space it's going to take for those pictures.
Right. It directly impacts the size of the file for each picture.
So you may say, well, great, I'll just buy a big megapixel camera. Well, make sure you've got the storage for those pictures. Because if you have a big megapixel camera and you have just a tiny little storage device, you may take 4 nice pictures, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
on a small card, yeah.
So you really kind of need to plan ahead there. Let's talk about what in the world ISO is.
ISO. Right. Basically, it's the amount of time it takes the image to get on there.
Okay.
It's how long it takes the light to affect to get the image onto the medium that you're using.
So, kind of like a shutter speed, or
similar, but it's more like back in the day when we had film. It's how much light we need to expose onto the film to get that onto the film. Nowadays, they use different means to get there because it is digital.
Right.
But it's still the same effect. The wider the range, the better it is.
Okay.
Simply, if you want a low light, low image, you need a low range to get a good exposure. On the other side of the coin, you need a higher range to get the fast action shots.
Like you're taking shots of football games, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you have to expose your picture for a full second, then you're going to have a streak of a football player.
We don't want that.
No.
Don't want that. Well, let's talk about shutter speed, because that's something that really is kind of common to the old film and then the new cameras too. Right. Let's talk about that.
Shutter speed refers to the amount of time that the shutter on the camera actually opens in order to expose the film.
Okay.
It's less complicated than ISO, but it achieves almost the same thing, so you use these two settings together a lot of the time. But the faster your shutter speed, the faster an image you can capture without motion blur. But again, if you're shooting in low light settings, you need a slower shutter speed so that your film medium has more time to take in light.
To grab that picture. Okay, very good. Well, let's move on to the point-and-shoot cameras, because I've seen a lot of these.
Right.
But you say they've really kind of taken off.
They have. They've gone from the one I got years ago being like 4 megapixels to as high as 16 nowadays.
Wow.
About 12 most of the time on an average one.
And very portable.
Yes, highly portable. You can toss it in your pocket, in your purse, whatever the case may be. It can be with you all the time. I know my mom carries hers everywhere.
Yeah, that's good.
You never know when you want to take a picture.
Yeah.
But they're the most basic, the least expensive, the most common. They generally have multitude of settings just for ease of use. Put it here, use it. You're done. Go.
And also you can just plug right in your computer, download the images, boom.
Exactly.
But again, the same thing. Make sure you got enough storage space.
Right. Yeah.
Because those can tend to have smaller storage devices on them than some of the bigger cameras.
You're usually using a memory card, which can't match a hard drive or anything for capacity.
Right. Well, let's talk about the last one, which is SLR. That sounds like a neat little...
SLR stands for single lens reflex.
Okay.
It's the oldest type of high-end camera. Is still in use today. They're generally called DSLRs now because they're digital.
Ah, okay.
So, usually they don't have as many settings available for your preset shooting options because the user is expected to know how to set that themselves. So before you take the shot, you need to know what you're looking at, take note of the light and any extraneous light sources around you, and manually set the ISO and shutter speed.
So it's maybe a little more toward the professional then for an SLR camera. Yeah. Well, you can get a great picture, but you really need to know your photographic details first.
Exactly.
Yeah, they also have hot swappable lenses. So you get the standard one that comes with it. If you need long-range shots, you can get telescopic. There's fisheye for the artsy types, and wide angle if you're doing landscapes or wide portrait shots.
Very good. So a lot more, you do a lot of different things.
Oh, a lot more options, but there's a lot more error possibilities.
And cost too.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah, no, they're very expensive.
All right, well, guys, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Of course, we'll be back next Tuesday with yet another tech segment as well. But hey, we've been out watching Up and Adam. He's been. Did y'all Zumba?
No.
Me neither. I was pulling muscle. But Adam, what's going on?
Out here all morning, suavemente, trying to figure out the secret. What's behind Zumba? After the break, we're gonna figure out just what it is. I think I found it. The secret is dancing. We'll see what you got, Eric.